Discover the amazing and transformative hidden secrets of the incredible Roman Empire revealed. Sarah Mitchell stood in her cramped living room, staring at a dusty old scroll cradled in her hands. The words danced with the promise of discovery about her ancestors and a forgotten Roman estate that once bore their name. It was like finding a glimmering golden thread woven through her otherwise drab existence. But as her pulse quickened with hope, a weight settled deep in her chest. This spark of ambition was a double-edged sword cutting into her already fragile life, a strugglesome life as a teacher in a small Midwestern town, navigating bills that seemed to multiply by the week while ensuring her spirited 8-year-old son, Danny, didn't feel the claws of financial worry. In the Hall of Education, Sarah's passion for ancient history often drew snickers from her colleagues. They dismissed her lectures as quaint distractions, as her heart wrestled against mockery while she faced the daunting realities of unpaid bills and a less-than-stellar paycheck. Coming home to Danny, who asked why his mom seemed so tired all the time, caved her insides deeper. "I'm fine," she would say, despite the gnawing anxiety that spiraled within her, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Her grandfather's recent passing loomed over her, shading every thought with a sense of loss. The scroll had pushed its way into her conscience like an unwelcome intruder, igniting a once dormant desire to chase history. What if she could reveal the buried estate, drawing forth pride in her family's name while building a bridge to a better future? But the moment she considered sharing her findings at the upcoming town meeting, doubt crept in. What if she was mocked again? What if her bid to reclaim family honor only deepened the skepticism of those around her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the meeting approached, her vision felt like a weight dragging her further into paranoia. She imagined the faces in the crowd, scrutinizing her every quirk, questioning her every word. Would they see her as a parent trying to protect her son's future or an eccentric teacher grasping at straws? What if influential figures in town banded together to squash her aspirations? Anxiety frayed her resolve. In the quiet moments, when Danny's light snoring filled the room, Sarah succumbed to the mental barrage. The scroll lay open beside her, its revelations transforming into haunting whispers. Would unearthing her family's past help them escape their present? Was risking her job and security worth the honor she craved? Uncertainty clawed at her focus, tightening her throat. The sun would rise soon, beckoning clarity, but all she could feel was the pressure mounting against her heart. Would she allow fear to dictate her courage? Time slipped through her fingers like grains of sand, an ever-looming deadline for a decision that could change everything. As the dawn touched the horizon, uncertainty gripped her. In the flickering light, Sarah found herself standing on a precipice. Either she would leap into the unknown or retreat back into the shadows of her life that had stifled her for too long. With trembling hands, she reminded herself of her family's legacy, one she desperately sought to honor but feared might consume her if she couldn't handle the truth. In that moment, as she prepared for the morning ahead, a single thought resonated: the shadows might not just threaten her, they might also unveil secrets to reshape not only her family's history but also her own. Shattered sense of identity. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the dingy curtains, Sarah Mitchell drew a steadying breath, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. In the dim light of her living room, she gazed once more at the scroll, its intricate script whispering promises of adventure, legacy, and the courage she felt fading with each passing moment. She had allowed herself to dream, yet now doubt clutched at her like a vice. The thought of presenting her discovery in front of the townsfolk tightened her chest. Memories of their dismissive laughter at her enthusiasm in the classroom replayed in her mind like a broken record. But today was different. Today, she would decide: either she would rise to meet her legacy or retreat, cocooned in the safety of her mundane routine. Pushing aside her fears, Sarah opened the scroll carefully, the brittle parchment crackling slightly like her resolve. The inscriptions held more than just words, they were fragments of her identity, clues that hinted at her family's past entwined with ancient grandeur. What if this knowledge wasn't just a gateway to the past but a means to reshape her future? The very thought invigorated her nerves, sending tendrils of motivation lacing through the cloud of self-doubt. She sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of papers filled with lesson plans and overdue bills. Amidst the chaos, she sensed a transformation stirring within her. This moment could serve as the catalyst for change. Perhaps her passion wasn't a mere escape, perhaps it was her key to empowerment. She envisioned standing before her colleagues and the townspeople, sharing tales of her ancestors, standing proud and unafraid. But how to turn this vision into reality? As she fleshed out ideas, fragments of stories her grandfather used to tell filled her mind. Heroes from the past could bridge the divide between the derision from her peers and the pride she longed to reclaim. The scroll glimmered with potential, and she felt a burgeoning sense of responsibility, not only to herself but to her son. If she failed to grasp this opportunity, would she rob Danny of the chance to know their family's rich history? Determination swept over her, causing her fingers to dance across the pages, jotting down thoughts, potential connections to the estate, key elements that would bolster her presentation. What if she approached it as a story and narrative where discovery intertwines with family? The idea electrified her, the implications spread before her like a well-laid map. The sun climbed higher, illuminating her makeshift workspace as she began to feel more capable, more prepared. Perhaps sharing her discoveries could inspire both herself and those naysayers who undermined her passion. She envisioned an interactive discussion rather than a monologue delivered to an audience of skeptics. This could be a journey undertaken together, where people would collaborate to honor the past while forging a new path for the town. Yet as ideas swirled, a familiar enemy whispered treacherous doubts. What if they rejected her, not just the ideas, but her? What if they saw her aspirations as frivolous, further isolating her in her own community? The gnawing fear threatened to immobilize her, gripping her like a vice. In a moment of clarity, with a resolve in her heart, Sarah confronted the thoughts head-on. "This is my history," she declared aloud, as if the very act of speaking the words would solidify her belief. The scroll wasn't merely an artifact, it was a vessel for her empowerment, a beacon shining away the darkness of doubt. Dawn had transformed into morning, and with it came a new realization: she held the reins of her fate. The upcoming meeting now loomed less as a daunting obstacle and more as an opportunity to share and grow. As she prepared to leave for the town hall, clutching her notes and the scroll, another poignant thought pierced her determination. What if the secrets she uncovered held not just a mirror reflecting her past but a means to redefine her present? The finality of this meeting left a quiver of anticipation thrumming through her veins. Stepping out the door, she felt the cool air invigorate her spirit. A fresh breeze swept past, not just hinting the arrival of a new day, but a new beginning. This was her moment to confront not merely the townsfolk but the uncertainty that had held her prisoner in her own life. As she approached the town hall, the reality of the decision she was making settled heavily on her shoulders. It was about far more than her ancestors, it was about reclaiming her identity. The door loomed large before her, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that behind it lay not just judgment, but possibility. With a deep breath, she grasped the handle and pushed the door open, heart racing. What awaited her on the other side? As voices buzzed around her, an unexpected figure caught her eye from the crowd, a person who had once dismissed her dreams outright. The moment had come, and she was ready to face them all. As the door swung open, the cacophony of chatter enveloped Sarah like a wave, the energy of the gathering thrumming against her chest. Faces turned, eyes assessed, sizing her up. A pitiless gaze settled on her, and for a moment, she faltered. But just as quickly, she steadied herself, reminding herself that her story mattered. Navigating through the crowd, she felt the weight of the scroll pressed against her palm, a lifeline pulling her forward. These were the same townsfolk who had scoffed in her classroom, ridiculed her aspirations. But today, she was armed with knowledge and inheritance that transcended the scorn, a narrative written in history. Finding a space toward the front, she unfolded her notes, her heart racing with the thrill of confrontation. An unexpected clarity settled in her mind. This wasn't about them, it was about her and the legacy she hoped to unveil. She envisioned the broader narrative that spanned her family's past, and suddenly the individual words on the page seemed to pulse with life. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Jake, the town's self-proclaimed historian and one of her loudest critics, standing amongst the gathering. Their eyes met for a brief moment, a silent challenge exchanged. Fueled by determination, Sarah prepared herself to confront not just the audience, but her own insecurities. The chair in front of her scraped back, and Sarah's pulse quickened. The town's mayor called the meeting to order, his voice resonating with authority. A knot of fear tightened in her stomach, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the sense of purpose arising within her. After all, this was her moment, a chance to reclaim her identity. As she stood up, the murmurs quieted. The scroll's weight felt reassuring in her hands. She started by expressing her gratitude for the community's support over the years, an uncharacteristic gesture that surprised even herself. Yet, she knew it was strategically important to quell any initial hostility, to build a bridge before diving into her revelations. Today, I want to share something dear to my heart, she began, her voice steady despite the quiver of her hands. It's about our shared history, about the legacy that binds us all. The words flowed with newfound conviction, each syllable emboldening her stance. She drew upon the stories etched in that fragile scroll, weaving them into her own narrative. As vivid tales of her ancestors emerged, the atmosphere transformed. Skepticism began to fade, replaced by genuine curiosity. She saw heads nodding, expressions shifting from derision to intrigue. It was exhilarating. Yet, just as she began to feel a glimmer of acceptance, she felt Jake's gaze sharp on her, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "This is fantasy, Sarah. You expect us to believe these stories?" He challenged, his voice loud and cutting. The laughter dissipated, and a hush settled. Rather than retreating, a surge of defiance coursed through Sarah. "What I learned didn't just happen in the past, it's living within us. It informs our future." She spoke clearly, emphasizing each word. "Are we so quick to dismiss that which we do not understand? If we ignore our roots, what do we have left?" Jake's expression remained unresolved, but Sarah's resolve only intensified. This encounter transformed into a defining moment not merely for her findings but for her identity as well. She realized that her confrontation wasn't just with the skeptics of her hometown, it was a confrontation with the part of herself that had always felt inferior, always held back. As she concluded her presentation, the applause that erupted around her was unexpected, loud, and genuine. A few familiar faces smiled warmly, their expressions now open, inviting connection. The tension that had wrapped around her shoulders began to unravel. Feeling the embers of hope ignite within her, Sarah descended from the makeshift podium, wary yet exhilarated. The glimpse of acceptance from others became both a reflection and an extension of her own acceptance. In that moment, Sarah understood that change was often a battle fought first within against fears, doubts, and the constraints of one's past. But as she stepped back into the predominantly welcoming space of the gathering, she instinctively knew that her journey had only just begun. There were questions left unanswered, and whispers of history yet to discover that called to her. What lay patiently waiting in the shadows of her family's past unraveled and yet to be revealed. As she turned to engage with the townsfolk, eager to share more stories and hear their reflections, she spotted another figure in the back, a woman who had secretly observed the entire exchange. Their eyes met, and suddenly, a new layer of intrigue unfolded. The feeling that this encounter could either shatter her aspirations or lift her to untold heights gripped Sarah tightly. What revelations awaited her in this unexpected connection that could redefine her pursuit of identity and community? As Sarah approached the woman, a calm determination steadied her breath. The crowd buzzed with excitement, but all she could focus on were those penetrating eyes. They were piercing yet wise, as though they held all the answers to questions she had yet to articulate. I need to speak with her, Sarah thought, sensing a magnetic pull that transcended the immediate chaos around her. "Excuse me," she said to a friendly older woman nearby, who was reminiscing about her own family history. The older woman's warmth briefly eased Sarah's tension, but she was swiftly pulled back into her mission. "Do you know who that is?" she asked, gesturing discreetly toward the observer. "Oh, that's Eliza Havens," the woman replied, her eyes sparkling with recognition. "She is a distant relative of the pioneers of this town and a notable historian herself. Very private though, always prefers to watch rather than participate." Eliza? The name stirred something in Sarah, but she didn't dwell on it. Her entire focus now shifted to the woman herself. Gathering her resolve, Sarah took a few steps closer, navigating through the remaining crowd until she stood before Eliza. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly, her heart racing. "I'm Sarah. I couldn't help but notice you were listening. I hope what I shared resonated." Eliza regarded her with an expression that felt simultaneously challenging and inviting. "You spoke well, Sarah. The stories you highlighted, they hold power," she said, her voice smooth and deliberate. "But there's more than what meets the eye, isn't there?" Sarah felt a spark of recognition as Eliza's gaze held her captive. "Yes, there is," she replied honestly, almost revealing too much. "I feel like there's something deeper in my family's history that I need to uncover. Something that could change everything." There was a pause as Eliza studied her. "Have you considered that it might not just change your story, but the perspectives of those around you? The truth can be a double-edged sword." Despite the metaphor, Sarah wasn't deterred. The more Eliza spoke, the more resolute she felt in her pursuit. "Maybe that's exactly what I need. It's time to confront not just the past, but also its implications for the future." Her declaration came out stronger than she had anticipated. Eliza's eyebrows raised slightly, impressed yet apprehensive. "Watch that determination, child. Sometimes digging too deep can unearth more than just the past." The warning hung heavily in the air, yet it only fueled Sarah's resolve. She was no longer merely a student of history, she was a seeker, ready to face the hidden layers of her own legacy, however tumultuous they may be. "I understand risk," Sarah replied, her voice firmer. "What I'm doing is about reshaping our narrative, my narrative." "In that case," Eliza said, her tone shifting to one of curiosity, "would you be willing to explore together?" The proposition set off a burst of excitement within Sarah. Every fiber of her being wanted to agree, yet an instinctive caution lingered. "Together?" she echoed, weighing the enormity of such an alliance. This was not mere collaboration, it suggested a shared commitment to unearth whatever secrets lay buried. "Yes," Eliza replied, a glimmer of challenge in her gaze. "But be warned, it may lead to revelations that might shatter established beliefs not just in others, but in yourself." A rush of adrenaline coursed through Sarah. Facing her past was daunting enough, but now there was a chance to unravel shared histories and hidden truths. "What's the first step?" Sarah asked, her eagerness overtaking her apprehension. Eliza smiled knowingly. "Meet me tomorrow morning at the old archives. I'll show you some documents that may connect us to the origins of our townsfolk stories and possibly your own." As the conversation drew to a close, Sarah felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. She realized that accepting Eliza's offer wasn't just about her own historical journey, it was about confronting a legacy that could shift her understanding of community forever. Yet, beneath the thrill lingered a nagging insecurity. What if the truth she unearthed jeopardized the fragile acceptance she had just begun to forge with her hometown? With resolute steps, Sarah rejoined the crowd, the applause still echoing in her mind, along with a new sense of purpose that felt as exhilarating as it was terrifying. Alongside her growing ambition, the fear of her actions haunted her thoughts. As shadows flickered with the fading daylight, Sarah wrestled not just with her past, but with the implications of her own ambition. The next day loomed, promising both enlightenment and potential conflict. What would she discover in the archives that could further shape her identity? And more importantly, would the truth grant her strength or unravel what she had just begun to rebuild? The morning sun sliced through the clouds, illuminating the path that led to the old archives. Sarah arrived early, anticipation tinged with anxiety thrumming beneath her skin. Each step toward the building stirred a mix of hope and dread, a reminder that today could mark a turning point in her life. As she approached, the indifference of the brick facade felt imposing yet familiar, a silent witness to stories long forgotten. The creak of the door echoed through the austere hallway, the scent of aged paper greeting her like an old friend. Inside, it was as if time stood still. Dust motes floated lazily in the beams of light, and shelves laden with documents towered like sentinels guarding the past. Eliza emerged from the shadows, her presence both commanding and inviting. "You made it," she said, the corners of her lips lifting in an encouraging smile. "Ready to change your perspective?" Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath as she stepped deeper into the archives. "What do we start with?" "History isn't linear," Eliza explained as they walked. "It's interconnected. We begin by looking for patterns and relationships, not just documents. This," she gestured toward a stack of folders, "contains genealogical records mixed with personal accounts. Your family may have left more than you think." With each folder Eliza opened, Sarah's curiosity grew, yet doubt nestled in the corners of her mind. What if the stories unearthed were too heavy? What if they revealed truths that changed how she saw her family, or her community? Then Eliza pulled out an old, weathered journal. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed. "Let us look at this one. It belonged to a woman closely linked to your family's roots." As Sarah flipped through the pages, her hands trembled. The entries revealed struggles, triumphs, and a charged legacy intertwined with pain and perseverance. Each word resonated within her, unlocking memories that had always felt distant. She could almost hear the voices of her ancestors as thoughts skipped through generations. "It's fascinating," Sarah whispered, already sensing a shift in her understanding. "This is a raw, human story." Eliza leaned closer, her expression serious. "It can also be a hard truth to bear. Are you prepared to accept whatever you discover? It may redefine your narrative, who you think you are and who others see you as." The gravity of Eliza's statement sunk in. This exploration transcended mere curiosity, it could provoke a confrontation with her past that would ripple through her present. "If I do this," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt, "I have to be ready for the consequences." Eliza studied her closely before replying. "And if the consequences reshape you, is that so terrible?" That question lodged itself within Sarah's mind, a seed of introspection. She realized that embracing her family's history was not just about seeking answers but also about crafting her own story, one where she would reclaim the narrative instead of it claiming her. As hours passed, they combed through documents, piecing together a history that was as complex and multifaceted as Sarah herself. The sense of discovery surged, but with each revelation came the weight of potential loss of relationships she had formed and beliefs she held dear. In one last folder, Sarah stumbled upon a letter addressed to her ancestors, discussing a scandal that had rocked their local community. The implications of that revelation dripped with uncertainty, weaving shadows into the fabric of her perceived reality. "Do you see how interconnected we are?" Eliza asked, watching Sarah as she absorbed the information. "These aren't just facts, they're the threads of life binding us, for better or worse." The tension within Sarah mounted. Could embracing these truths lead to more than just personal revelation? Might they also ignite conflict with those who cherished a sanitized version of history? "I need time to process this," Sarah finally said, feeling a mix of urgency and hesitation. But deep in her gut, she felt a new hunger for understanding emerging, a desire to confront not just her family's past, but the larger truths hidden beneath it. "Take that time, but don't retreat," Eliza cautioned. "Tomorrow, let us discuss what this means for your present." You'll need to confront the story you've been living as you begin to shape a new one. The real challenge lies ahead. In that moment, as she gazed at the letters filled with long-buried secrets, Sarah understood that the journey had only just begun. Tomorrow loomed large, a daunting yet exhilarating promise that could unearth her potential or unravel everything she knew. Her heart raced at the thought. Was she ready to face the echoes of the past and the upheaval it might bring? The dawn broke with an unsettling stillness, an environment charged with possibilities and dread. As Sarah sat in her small kitchen, coffee cooling in front of her, she felt the weight of yesterday's discoveries pressing against her chest. The light streaming through the window seemed to mock her, a reminder that the outside world moved on while she teetered on the brink of revelation or ruin. Her mind replayed Eliza's words, each echo a soft yet intense prod towards the slope of self-discovery. What had she unearthed in that old folder? Not mere documents, but the essence of lives lived brave, flawed, and agonizing. A part of her longed to turn back, to backpedal into the comfort of ignorance. But the ember of curiosity sparked a greater urge to confront the unknown. With a sigh, she switched on her laptop, the screen illuminating her face. A blank document stared back at her, a testament to both her hesitance and her growing resolve. She began typing, capturing the raw emotions of her discoveries, documenting the history she had unearthed. With every keystroke, she confronted bits of her heritage, sketching out the contours of a life she had yet to understand fully. As she wrote, memories of family gatherings, casual stories, and those sheltered corners where secrets had festered rose to the surface. The revelation of the letter a family scandal twisted within her thoughts. The uncertainty of what that would mean for her interactions with loved ones was a gulf she felt ill-prepared to cross. She paused and gazed outside, her reflection melding with the trees swaying in the wind. Was it possible that the scandal, something that could fracture familial bonds, might also pave a path to a more authentic self? With this swirling chaos, a new theory began to form in her mind, not only to learn about her past but to reclaim her future, shaping it to be unbound by legacy. "Focus, Sarah," she murmured, her voice just loud enough to bounce against the stillness of the kitchen. It was a moment for planning, setting steps towards meaningful engagement with the hidden elements of her history. She opened another tab and began researching community archives, forums dedicated to genealogy, and local histories that could shed further light on her family's past. Each click ignited a renewed sense of purpose. The more she unraveled, the more she felt like a detective unearthing clues, piecing together a legacy. Later, while rummaging through her own collection of family heirlooms, she stumbled upon a dusty box filled with photographs. A faded black-and-white picture caught her attention. Staring back at her was a woman whose eyes mirrored her own. It was uncanny, almost eerie, the connection palpable. Who was she? What had life meant for her? As uncertainties clouded her thoughts, the desire to learn more intensified. The bold choice echoed in her mind. Engaging fully with this tangled history meant facing tough conversations and potential fallout with relatives who feared change. Family ties had always been a fragile tapestry, but perhaps those threads could be rewoven in new designs. That evening, her phone buzzed incessantly beside her. Messages from her mother, filled with warmth but intertwined with family myths that rang increasingly hollow. Each ping served as a reminder of the delicate balance between the truth she sought and the comfort of familial love. Sarah's thoughts swirled as she rolled the implications of her discoveries over in her mind, weighing them against familial loyalty. It was a pivotal moment that begged a question: was she prepared to challenge the very identity that bound her to her loved ones? Fueled by this duality of desire and the stakes involved, Sarah quickly sketched out a plan for the next day. She would return to the archives, meet with Eliza, and share not just her discoveries but also her growing concerns about what those might mean in her relationships. Yet amidst her resolve, an unsettling thought nagged at her: what if the confrontation with the past triggered a rift too vast to bridge? As she prepared for bed, the weight of these unanswered questions loomed over her, a haunting reminder that the journey ahead could lead her to an uncomfortable truth or unleash a transformation beyond her reckoning. Tomorrow promised confrontation not just with the past, but with herself. Could she rewrite her narrative without losing the fragments of love that had defined her until now? As sleep rushed in like a tide, uncertainty filled her with both dread and exhilaration. Was she ready for what awaited her in the archives? The following morning, Sarah awoke with a start, the sun disrupting her restless dreams. The weight of the discoveries loomed yet again, heavier than before, and she felt the firmer pulse of determination beneath her anxiety. Today was not just about unearthing truths, it was about claiming her own agency in a history that was also hers. After a quick breakfast, she collected her notes and the scattered papers from the archives in a clean folder, a transient armor against the uncertainties she anticipated. In the stillness of her home, she practiced what she would say to Eliza, the librarian who had become a quiet mentor in this odyssey of self-discovery. Would she admit to the tumult of emotions rising within her? Or would she project calm confidence, ready to reveal the secrets she only half understood? The ride to the archives felt oppressive. The landscape blurred past her, an irritating reminder that life continued in a linear way while she was suspended in this quagmire of revelations. Each stoplight felt like a countdown, each moment ticking away her courage. Upon arriving, she was greeted by the familiar mustiness of books and the charm of history. Eliza was already at her desk, organizing stacks of files. There was something welcoming about her presence, but also an undercurrent of expectation. Sarah approached, feeling the buzzing anticipation of the unknown mingling with a tinge of fear about what lay ahead. "Ah, Sarah. You look ready for exploration. Found any treasures yet?" Eliza asked, her voice bright and engaging. "Actually, I found something different," Sarah replied, hesitating slightly. The words hung in the air, as if daring the inevitable confrontation. "I think there are parts of my family history that need to be talked about." Eliza's eyebrows rose, a sign of both intrigue and encouragement. "What did you discover?" In that moment, the dam broke. Sarah recounted her escapades through both the folder and her heirlooms. She revealed the layer of discomfort, how uncertainty wrapped around her familial identity like ivy, and the nagging thoughts that questioned her lineage. Eliza listened attentively, nodding in understanding. "And now?" Eliza prompted, gently pushing her to articulate the next steps. "What are you hoping to accomplish?" "I want to know the truth," Sarah replied, her voice gathering strength. "But also, will it fracture everything I understand about my family? The fear of change hovers over me." "You're grappling with deep traditional love and the courage to be authentic," Eliza said, her tone serious yet supportive. "Such struggles often reveal hidden strengths. Remember that reclaiming your narrative is not about obliterating your past but rather reframing it to empower your identity." Those words resonated with Sarah like a thunderclap, awakening a surge of clarity. Strength was not something she needed to wrestle for, it resided in embracing her multifaceted self. Empowered, she realized her revelations could foster deeper connections, even as they threatened to disrupt existing dynamics. "Are you ready to dig even deeper?" Eliza asked, a slight grin on her face. "We can begin examining the records connected to the scandal you found. It might unearth perspectives you hadn't considered yet." The anticipation surged in Sarah. Suddenly, the intertwining paths of her past and present felt palpable, the very threads of her family's fabric waiting to be rewoven. They delved into the archives, rifling through documents saturated with dusty history. The weight of the moment pressed hard against Sarah's chest, urging her not to look away or retreat. She began to decipher the swirling letters, each line whispering fragments of stories long silenced. As she pieced together the revelations, a gnawing thought flared in her mind: what if this journey brought forth individuals who might not be as accepting of her unearthing truths as she hoped? As they uncovered names, dates, and poignant whispers of family connections, Sarah felt a new sense of resolve building inside her. The path to understanding stretched out before her, brimming with potential. But there remained an acute awareness that confronting her family might not kindle familial bonds, rather, it could ignite a chasm of truth that seemed insurmountable. In that moment, Sarah felt the upheaval of old fears battling against newfound determination. She was not just seeking answers, she was about to challenge the legacy entwined with love, loyalty, and fear. As they unraveled the layers of time together, a spark of urgency ignited within her. Was she truly ready for the truth laid bare, irrespective of the consequence? The more they uncovered, the deeper the tension curled inside her, leading to an inevitable form of confrontation with family and her own conflicted heart. What awaited her at the other end of these discoveries? Would she grasp the potential for transformation or fracture the very identity she sought to retain? The echo of those questions haunted her as they embarked deeper into the archives, the thrill of the unknown urging her forward into places she could never have fathomed. As the hours slipped by, Sarah and Eliza became immersed in the labyrinth of records. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light pouring through the lofty windows, accentuating the gravity of their task. Each document they uncovered seemed like a puzzle piece, some sharp, some smooth, each sending her mind racing with implications. On one sheet, a name leapt out at her unexpectedly, igniting a flicker of recognition. Was this another branch of her family tree she had never suspected existed? Eliza noticed the flicker in Sarah's eyes. "What did you find?" she asked, curiosity piqued. "It's a name from a different surname," Sarah said slowly, disentangling the threads of emotion. "I've never heard of it in relation to my family, but it's part of a larger narrative, maybe even part of that scandal." "Different surnames can lead to different stories, each with its own context," Eliza replied, encouragingly. "What do you feel about this new discovery?" The question hit home, reverberating within her. It was not just information, it represented a challenge to everything she thought she understood about her heritage. Would she be prepared to confront the implications of this new relationship? The thought excited her and scared her in equal measure. "I don't know if I'm ready," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. What if it means you have a richer family narrative?" Eliza interrupted gently. "You have a chance to expand your understanding, not restrict it. Growth often comes with discomfort." Yet Sarah grappled with a fear that coiled tightly around her enthusiasm. The path was shifting beneath her, the stones were no longer familiar. Each document was a potential revelation, but it also bore the weight of possibility. What if these unearthing truths painted a picture so starkly different from her memories? Just then, Eliza placed her hand over Sarah's on the desk. Initiating change is daunting, but every powerful transformation begins with a first step. You can frame the narrative however you choose. Feeling emboldened, Sarah pulled the crinkled document closer, her heartbeat intensifying. With trembling fingers, she recorded the unfamiliar name in her notebook, noting the intricacies that circled back into a lineage she was yet to comprehend. Let us search for more records connected to this name. There must be family ties or letters that can illuminate its place in the scandal, Eliza proposed, her voice igniting Sarah's anticipation again. Together, they plunged back into the depths of the archives, their quest morphing into something dynamic and transformational. Within the scrolls and brittle pages, deeper connections emerged, letters penned in desperation, photographs of long-past family gatherings, and newspaper clippings that hinted at familial tension and drama simmering beneath the surface. As the hours melted away, Sarah began to understand she was not merely a passive observer in these lives, she was intricately woven into their fabric. Yet with every revelation, she recalibrated her internal compass, trying to navigate the dissonance threatening to fracture her understanding of belonging. Personal ties intertwined with historical trails, beckoning her to embrace a broader narrative, but also cautioning her against the unknown. The possibility of unearthing ethical dilemmas became real. How much truth should one hold if it could disrupt relationships? As she sifted through the newfound material, Sarah felt the anticipation build into a crescendo of introspection. Could the newfound strength and insight she was gaining withstand the tests ahead? One fiercely emotional thought pierced her consciousness. Was there a point where uncovering these truths would risk unraveling the very fabric of the family she sought to understand? The weight of that realization felt more substantial than the heavy tomes that surrounded her. As Sarah stood there, caught between uncovering the past and protecting the present, she felt a pulse of commitment surge within her. It was time to confront the uncertainties head-on, to recognize That her journey could demand difficult choices about loyalty and integrity. On the cusp of considerable decisions, a looming question drifted through her mind: how would her family respond when confronted with the truths she had selectively unearthed? With that, she turned to Eliza, determination etched on her face. "Let us keep going. I need to face this not just for me, but for the family who came before me." Steeling herself, Sarah prepared to take the next steps toward the resolution she craved, unaware of the powerful revelations waiting to break the surface just ahead. What new complexities would their findings unveil, and would the revelation bring her closer to understanding her true self or push her family further away than ever before? With a newfound resolve, Sarah dove deeper into the records, the thrill of discovery charged with weighty implications. Each document they uncovered felt like peeling back layers of a long-held secret, a rawness that both invigorated and terrified her. She could sense the walls of her previous understanding crumbling, yet a part of her remained rooted in fear of what this new knowledge might cost her. Eliza, ever perceptive, picked up on Sarah's tension. "You look like you're on the edge of something significant," she remarked. "What is going on in that brilliant mind of yours?" Taking a measured breath, Sarah responded. "I'm realizing how little I know about my family. This isn't just about finding names on paper anymore, it feels personal. It's like I'm starting to understand the burdens they carried and the shadows that linger." "They did carry burdens, and uncovering that truth is such a powerful act," Eliza encouraged. "You might find strength in those stories, strength you never knew existed. But how do you see yourself standing with that knowledge?" The question lingered in the air, and Sarah pondered the moral complexity of her pursuit. Could she handle the pressure of revelation? What if the familial ties she discovered only led her deeper into chaos? She had built her identity upon a certain narrative, and now, it felt like an elaborate facade. Unraveling it meant confronting uncomfortable realities. As they sifted through a box of aged letters, Sarah's fingers brushed against delicate paper as she unfolded a yellowing page. The faded ink revealed a love letter, marred by the passage of time but bursting with raw emotion. Reading it was like an intrusion, an intimate glimpse into a world that had long since faded. The couple referenced in the missive their love, their longing hinted at connections that splintered her own family history and brought forth questions she was unprepared to answer. "What is that?" Eliza asked, her curiosity piqued as Sarah hesitated to share. "It's a letter from someone named Alice to a man in our family," Sarah replied slowly, grappling with the implications. "It's romantic, but it also feels like a bombshell. Could Alice be related to the scandal?" "The timing could mean something significant," Eliza stated, eyes gleaming with intrigue. "You must dig deeper into their backstory. This could clarify why that name you found mattered enough to be preserved across generations." Empowered by Eliza's encouragement, a thought took root in Sarah's mind. Her fingers moved instinctively over the keyboard, diving into Ancestry databases for any trace of Alice. Was this new thread a key to unraveling the true narrative of her family? As she tapped away, possibilities flickered before her, pulling her forward. The hours flew by, and Sarah felt herself transform from a mere investigator of history to a custodian of her family's untold stories. Yet in the back of her mind, a haunting reminder persisted: every piece of information came with consequences. Could she reconcile the love and loss encapsulated in the letters while maintaining her existing familial bonds? The fear of confronting her relatives with truths that could fracture relationships gnawed at her. Pushing through the discomfort, Sarah resolved that knowledge was a necessary burden. She had already sensed pieces of herself shifting in light of these discoveries. This journey was not just for her lineage but for her own understanding of family. But could she be strong enough to wield that knowledge? Suddenly, a new document drew her attention. It was a photograph of a gathering, a family reunion from decades past. An unfamiliar face in the background caught her eye, strikingly similar to her own. A chill raced down her spine. Who was this person? Could this be someone closer to her than she ever imagined? With a mix of trepidation and excitement, Sarah turned to Eliza. "We're on to something deeper. But it also means I need to prepare for what I might find. What if this new branch leads me to even more revelations or dire conflicts? Eliza nodded. Seriously. Then we prepare for all possibilities. It's time to acknowledge that the truth isn't always comfortable, but it's essential. Sarah took a deep, steadying breath, the weight of her discoveries settling both heavily and liberatingly upon her. As their next search began, one question filled her mind: what new revelations lay in wait, poised to redefine everything she thought she knew about herself and her family? The hunt for clarity was far from over. Days turned into weeks as Sarah Mitchell continued her journey of discovery through the complex tapestry of her family's history. The initial thrill of unearthing hidden secrets had matured into a profound understanding of not just the names and dates, but the emotional weight they carried. Each document in the archives was more than ink on a page; they were connections to real lives, bound to her through love, sacrifice, and sometimes tragedy. One crisp Saturday morning, Sarah entered the town hall, clutching a folder filled with her findings. The hum of voices buzzed around her, the atmosphere charged with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. This was the day she would share her discoveries with the community, her heart pounding at the thought of all eyes on her. What if they met her revelations with skepticism again? But now, she held a treasure trove of narratives, stories that reflected the complexities of her family and intertwined with those of the townsfolk. She felt ready, not just for them but for herself. Standing at the front, a sense of purpose enveloped her, imaging the moment beyond the crowd. The folds of paper met her trembling hands with a steadying grip as she glanced at familiar faces. It was time to bridge past and present. "Thank you all for coming," she began, heart racing. "Today, I want to share not only the stories of my ancestors but also how these stories intertwine with our town's larger narrative." The room fell silent, skepticism quietly diffusing into curiosity. She spoke eloquently, referencing the letters she had read, the photographs she had found, and most importantly, the lessons learned through unraveling the complexities of love, struggle, and integrity embedded in her family's past. With each word, she felt a weight lift. This was no longer just about gaining acceptance, it was about offering understanding and inviting others to share their own experiences. "Every name has a story, and every story carries lessons," she articulated passionately, her voice stronger with each sentence. "In the quest for reclaiming our history, we unveil not only what has been neglected but also what can connect us today. My family's past fears and triumphs resonate within our community and reflect the challenges we all face." As she wrapped up her presentation, a ripple of applause coursed through the room. The warmth of acceptance washed over her, igniting a flame of empowerment. But it wasn't just the applause that resonated, it was the shared glances of acknowledgement, an unspoken promise that they would carry this newfound understanding forward. Later, as Sarah mingled with the town's residents, several shared stories of their own families and connections to the past. They began to speak openly about their fears and their histories, creating an atmosphere of unity she had once thought impossible. In those moments, her heart swelled with pride. She had not only unveiled her family's history but had also fostered a culture of sharing vulnerability among her peers. Jake, her harshest critic, approached her, his expression solemn yet sincere. "I never thought your passion for history could hold so much depth," he admitted. "You've challenged my understanding of our shared past, and for that, I apologize for doubting you. Thank you for taking that leap." His acknowledgement felt like a culmination of all her struggles. She had transformed from an underestimated teacher to a respected voice, recognized for bringing both personal and community growth. The fears that had once crippled her were now mere stepping stones in her journey. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah flourished in her role as an educator and historian. The town invited her to lead discussions on local history, sparking new interest and inclusivity among residents. Her relationship with Danny flourished too, seeing her mother embrace her passions ignited a spark of courage in him as well. The deepest transformation lay in Sarah's newfound confidence. No longer tethered to the shadows of ridicule and doubt, she embodied a voice of authority and resilience. She was not merely resurrecting the stories of her ancestors, she had woven them into the fabric of her own identity. Finally, one sunny afternoon, Sarah stood at the doorstep of her house, a tinge of nostalgia filling her heart. She held a steaming mug of coffee and gazed at the scroll that had once ignited her journey. It rested against her bookshelf, a symbol of profound change. Looking out at the world, she felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had successfully reclaimed her family's story and, in the process, rewritten her own narrative. She doubted her worth no longer. She was Sarah Mitchell, a woman who had conquered the chains of insecurity and stepped bravely into her legacy. The world was now hers to explore and redefine wherever it led. She would walk through it with her head held high. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so others can experience this journey of transformation too. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see Sarah's triumphant journey and witness the power of embracing your history. Don't wait even one more second.